Reading is one of the best ways to quickly improve your English fluency. Yes, I said reading, not speaking. Speaking is output. Speaking is using the language. To speak, you need to expand your vocabulary, use correct grammar and sentence structure, and pronounce your words clearly. Reading will help you do all of that at the same time. In this masterclass, we'll read together for 2 hours, and we'll read the news because it uses natural English that you'll hear in the real world. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started.
Our headline: MIT researchers say using ChatGPT can rot your brain. So here, MIT researchers, this is the acronym for a university, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Now they're including that it's MIT researchers because MIT is a prestigious university. So it gives credit instantly to these researchers. Now the subject is they, because of course we have researchers. Researchers say using ChatGPT can rot your brain. So to rot your brain, this is if your brain ability declines or worsens. The verb rot is very commonly used with materials or even plants, for example. It's also very commonly used with food. Any food, here in this example, that banana is rotten. So first of all, notice that pronunciation. I can say rotten, and pronounce those T's, or I can use a glottal stop, which sounds like rotten, which native speakers often do. So here, to be rotten, it describes the state of the banana. Another way of saying it is simply that banana is spoiled. It's black. You don't want to eat it. Or that banana is bad. You can use both of these for food as well, or you can use rotten, which is very common. Now here is an unfortunate example, which is true for me. We have to redo our deck. So redo means we have to do our deck again. We have to build the deck again because the wood is rotting. So it's in progress now. So this is a very common verb, and in this case, it's used with your brain. Don't worry about taking notes. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Let's keep reading. Since ChatGPT appeared almost 3 years ago, the impact of artificial intelligence, AI, of course, this is the acronym, AI. Now people don't say artificial intelligence, they just say AI because it's well known. AI technologies on learning has been widely debated. Okay, so here, has been, this is our verb, but we see technologies, which is plural. But you have to go back and ask yourself what the subject is, and the subject is the impact. The impact of something, in this case, the something is plural. Technologies, AI technologies, but the subject is still the impact. It has been widely debated. The impact has been widely debated. Now this has been widely debated because it's a ongoing action. So it's been debated in the past and it's still being debated now. Has been widely debated. Widely is the modifier, which means many people. Many people have an opinion on using AI with learning. So that's widely debated. Instead of widely, you could also say has been highly debated, has been extensively debated. Those are common synonyms. Are they handy tools? So to describe something as handy means it's helpful. Are they helpful tools? Are they handy tools for personalized education or gateways to academic dishonesty? So here, when you have a gate is a structure that opens and then you can go through it. So the gate prevents you from going from one side to another. So the gateway is how you can go through it. So AI being a gateway to academic dishonesty, you can picture that AI is the gate that opens, and when you go through it, you get academic dishonesty. So a gateway to academic dishonesty, it means it has created or led students to academic dishonesty. In this context, the gateway leads somewhere negative, but it can also lead somewhere positive. For example, fluent English is a gateway to a better career. So fluent English is what leads you to a better career. It's a gateway. So a gateway because it's a noun. In this case, there's no a because it's plural and you don't need an article with plural nouns. Fluent English is a gateway to a better career. If you believe that fluent English is a positive gateway, maybe to a better career, travel opportunities, friendship, learning, whatever it may be, put that's right in the comments. Now let's keep reading. Most importantly, there has been concern that using AI will lead to a widespread dumbing down or decline in the ability to think critically. So the widespread dumbing down, notice widespread, this is similar to widely. Widely describes the verb debated, widely debated, a widespread dumbing down. So a widespread, this is an adjective, a widespread dumbing down. So if it's widespread, it has the same meaning as widely. This is the adverb form, and this is an adjective. And dumbing down is a noun phrase. It means a decline in intelligence. So the decline in intelligence, the decline in critical thinking, the ability to think critically, you could also say the decline in critical thinking, that would be the noun form. That is the brain rot. So rot your brain as a noun, you could also say can cause brain rot. So brain rot is the something, it's the noun. And if brain rot represents a brain that is weakened, less intelligent, and worse over time. So can cause brain rot, that's the noun form. Can rot, that's the verb, your brain. So they're the same thing, it's just different grammar.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson.
If students use AI tools too early, the argument goes, they may not develop basic skills for critical thinking and problem solving. Notice this part here, the argument goes. This is a phrase that represents many people say this. So the this being everything that isn't highlighted. If students use AI too early, they may not develop critical thinking and problem solving. Many people say. So when you're sharing an opinion that may not be your opinion, but you just want to share what many people think on the topic, you can use this phrase, the argument goes. Let's take this statement. If you become fluent in English, you'll have more job opportunities. Now you can add on the argument goes to show that many people think this. Remember, you may think this, hopefully you do, but this this statement doesn't focus on you. It just focuses on what many people think. So you can add it here like they did. The argument goes. Now, goes is in the present simple third person singular because it's conjugated with the argument, which is singular. It goes. You can also put it at the end of your sentence as well, separated by a comma, because you need to show the division between ideas. It's more common in mid position. Let's continue. Is that really the case? So the case being this statement here. So is that really the case? This is another way of asking, is that true? Is that accurate? Is that really the case? So does that represent the facts truthfully or accurately is another way of thinking about this. Let's continue. According to a recent study by scientists from MIT, it appears so. So here, this "it appears so" is the response to the question asking, is that really the case? Is that true? Is that accurate? It appears so. But appears so is not the same as saying, yes, that is true. Yes, that is accurate. Because using the word appear is when it seems true, but you're not 100% sure. It appears so. So represents to be true. It appears to be true. It seems to be accurate. So you can use appears or seems. There's an S on it because it's conjugated with the subject it. And this is according to, don't forget that preposition to, and then someone or something. In this case, it's the study. The study is by the scientists, but the according to is the study. And when you say it seems or appears so, there is evidence. So the evidence is in the study, but you're still not 100% certain because there's some evidence in this study, but how conclusive is this study? Maybe the study has limitations, for example. Using ChatGPT to help write essays, the researchers say, can lead to cognitive debt and a likely decrease in learning skills. Cognitive relates to your brain function and brain ability. When people talk about cognitive skills, cognitive ability, it's the way you're able to use your brain. Debt is bad. And notice the pronunciation. The B is silent. Debt, debt. Well, I guess you could argue that there's good debt, like the mortgage for your home, and then there's bad debt, buying a really expensive purse that you can't afford with a credit card. Maybe that's bad debt. It's up to the person to decide. But in this case, cognitive debt represents something negative. Debt, debt. The phrase cognitive debt is not one I have ever used in my speech. However, I understand what it means just based on context, and I've seen it in writing and studies before. So here's an example. Always using a calculator leads to cognitive debt. The argument goes. Notice I added on the argument goes because this suggests that many people think this is true. Now, one that I have used in my day-to-day speech is brain rot. So remember, brain rot is a something, it's a noun. So here, instead of cognitive debt, which to me sounds very technical, very formal, not something I would use, but brain rot sounds more everyday. It sounds more common and it's easily understood. People understand instantly what that means. Now, what is brain rot or cognitive debt? Well, it's the negative effect that accumulates, so grows over time when you rely on outside help instead of your brain. So the outside help in this case could be a calculator. It could be ChatGPT. When you're driving, it could be GPS. If you have a bad sense of direction, it's because you don't practice using your navigational skills. You use GPS. That also describes me. So that is an example of cognitive debt, which is very technical. You can refer to it as brain rot. Let's keep reading. Over the course of 4 months. So the course of is a phrase that's used to represent the duration of time. So you could say over 4 months. The course of just allows you to imagine that period of time more specifically. You could say over the course of the semester in a school. You could also just say over the semester. So over the course of 4 months, the MIT team. Now this article, the, is not connected to MIT because MIT here is an adjective. It describes team. So here it's connected to the team. The team. Which team? The MIT team. The MIT team asked 54 adults to write a series of 3 essays using either AI, ChatGPT. So they're letting you know specifically what AI, ChatGPT, a search engine, which would be Google, or their own brains, brain-only group. The team measured cognitive engagement by examining electrical activity in the brain. So to be honest, I don't exactly know what cognitive engagement is. I know cognitive has to do with your brain, and engagement is how much you're paying attention, how focused you are. So here, cognitive engagement, I would assume, is based on how engaged your brain is. So how effectively your brain is working, how well your brain is working by examining electrical activity in the brain. So they're looking at this scan to see how your brain waves are activating, lighting up to measure the connections between your brain cells. So cognitive engagement by examining electrical activity in the brain and through linguistic analysis of the essays. Linguistic analysis of essays, this is a very advanced way of just saying, and through reviewing the essays. So it would be like when I review my students in the Finally Fluent Academy, I look at their writing and then I can determine what level of English they have. I can determine what areas they need to improve. That's the everyday way of saying the more technical linguistic analysis of the essays. So you could just say review of the essays. Let's keep reading. The cognitive engagement, remember, you can think of this as just your mental ability, your brain's ability to focus or think. So the cognitive engagement of those who used AI was significantly lower than the other 2 groups. This group also had a harder time recalling quotes from their essays. So this group represents the group that used AI. Remember, there were the 3 groups. Used AI, what was the second? Search engines. Right now, this is a measure of your ability to recall information, which is to remember specific information when needed to. And the 3rd group was the brain-only group. Did you get all 3? If you did, you just showed really amazing cognitive engagement. If you didn't, that doesn't mean anything. Okay, the cognitive engagement of those who used AI was significantly lower. Significantly is a more advanced way of saying very much. So very much lower, significantly lower than the other 2 groups. This group, the group that used AI, also had a harder time recalling quotes, so requiring your brain to give you the information exactly when you need it from their essays. So quotes would be, of course, the words of someone else, maybe inspirational or related to a specific study, and felt a lower sense of ownership over them. Them is what? The essays. The essays, from their essays. This is the last plural noun used. So when you want to identify the subject of a pronoun, you look to the last noun used that matches it. So this is the last plural noun, and we have them, which is plural. So if they have a lower sense of ownership, would you feel like you were truly the author of a short story if ChatGPT wrote it for you? Would you say, like, this is my story? Maybe, maybe not. But if you wrote that story based on a dream you had or an experience in your life, you would probably feel a high sense of ownership. Now, this is just a comparative because they're comparing it to the other groups. So you could say a higher sense of ownership compared to if ChatGPT wrote the story, if AI wrote the story. Notice our verb. Our verb is recall, but it's in the ing form. Do you know why? This group also had a harder time recalling quotes. It's because of this phrase, to have, conjugated in the past, then an adjective, time. That is a gerund phrase, and you use the gerund after it. This is a very common phrase. For example, I had a hard time reading this article. Maybe that's what you would say if you had read this article before this review where we learn what all these terms mean. I had a hard time reading this article. I had a hard time writing that essay. I had a hard time preparing the presentation, whatever it might be. Now, you use this probably every single day almost. I had a great time doing something. I had a great time playing games with my kids. Whatever it might be, this is a gerund phrase, and you can replace the adjective with positive or negative adjectives. And remember, your verb is have, and that's what you conjugate. And you need this article, Let's keep going. Current and future generations need to be able to think critically and creatively and solve problems. You could grammatically say, and problem solve. Your problem solving skills, for example, so that would be the noun form, and problem solve. But this is a verb. So, and solve problems. It focuses on the verb, which makes sense because this is a verb, and then this tells you how. Think critically and creatively and solve problems. However, AI is changing what these things mean. What does it mean to think critically when we have ChatGPT as a resource? Or to think creatively when we have ChatGPT to write a story for us? Producing essays with pen and paper is no longer a demonstration of critical thinking ability. So a demonstration of, it means no longer demonstrates, so shows. So the verb is demonstrate. So you could say producing essays with pen and paper no longer demonstrates, no longer does the verb. Just like you would say, I no longer live in, and then whatever city you used to live in, or a neighborhood, or I no longer work at Google. Now I work at Amazon, whatever it might be. So you could turn this into the verb form demonstrate, which means to show. A demonstration of critical thinking, this is just the noun form. Let's keep reading. Prioritizing which tasks can be offloaded to an AI. So if you offload a task, it means you take the task from you and you give it to someone else. So another word, I guess, would be delegating. You take a task from you and you give it to someone else, which can be offloaded to an AI, which can be given. You can even use the verb give in a simple way, can be given to an AI. To reduce cognitive debt is just as important as understanding which tasks require genuine creativity and critical thinking. Now, when I first read this, I was a little confused because this word, cognitive debt, is different from the way it's being used before. And because I shared that this isn't a word that's very common in my vocabulary, it took me a second to understand the meaning of it. Because in this context, cognitive debt, this is a positive thing. But before they were using it as a negative thing because you want to reduce this cognitive debt. So the cognitive debt in this case represents just your mental workload or your mental load. All the tasks that you need to do, you can think of those tasks as your cognitive debt. So if you have to complete 3 assignments, reply to 20 emails, write your shopping list, all of that is your cognitive debt. There are things that are taking away from your ability to think critically. But they're saying here, you can give these tasks to AI to reduce this strain on your brain, your strain on your brain, this cognitive debt, this mental load that you have. Now, it's just as important as, notice this double as. I see a lot of students forgetting this. As important as. That house is as big as this house. So when you're making a comparison, as, and then adjective, and then another as. So this entire thing is the comparative between this second thing. And in terms of importance, they're equal. If it weren't equal, one would be more important than, less important than. Equal is as important as. And notice we have our ing here, as understanding which tasks require genuine creativity. So genuine creativity means that it's true creativity. It's not the creativity that an AI can do to write a short story, if that is the task. It's true creativity that needs to come from your brain and critical thinking. And that's the end of the article. This article may take many reviews. Remember, you can also download the free PDF so you can review everything, get comfortable with the terms, and then review the full lesson again to hear my explanation. So don't feel surprised if you're overwhelmed by this article. It was quite advanced. But what I'll do now is I'll read the article from start to finish so you can focus on the pronunciation and then also hear all the words that we reviewed again. MIT researchers say using ChatGPT can rot your brain. Since ChatGPT appeared almost 3 years ago, the impact of artificial intelligence, AI, technologies on learning has been widely debated. Are they handy tools for personalized education or gateways to academic dishonesty? Most importantly, there has been concern that using AI will lead to a widespread dumbing down or decline in the ability to think critically. If students use AI tools too early, the argument goes, they may not develop basic skills for critical thinking and problem solving. Is that really the case? According to a recent study by scientists from MIT, it appears so. Using ChatGPT to help write essays, the researchers say, can lead to cognitive debt and a likely decrease in learning skills. Over the course of 4 months, the MIT team asked 54 adults to write a series of 3 essays using either AI, ChatGPT, a search engine, or their own brain-only group. The team measured cognitive engagement by examining electrical activity in the brain and through linguistic analysis of the essays. The cognitive engagement of those who used AI was significantly lower than the other 2 groups. This group also had a harder time recalling quotes from their essays and felt a lower sense of ownership over them. Current and future generations need to be able to think critically and creatively and solve problems. However, AI is changing what these things mean. Producing essays with pen and paper is no longer a demonstration of critical thinking ability. Prioritizing which tasks can be offloaded to an AI to reduce cognitive debt is just as important as understanding which tasks require genuine creativity and critical thinking.
Amazing job. Now let's keep going and read another article together.
Our headline, chatbots are replacing therapists faster than anyone expected. Let's look at this classic comparative phrase here, faster than. You may know that there are 2 ways to form the comparative. You can add ER to the adjective, or you can use more plus adjective. So let's use 2 examples. Prices are rising faster than anyone expected, or you could also say predicted. So here our verb is to rise, and it's in the present continuous because it's taking place now. It doesn't have to be. You could say prices rose and see it as a completed action. However, in this case, it's in the present continuous, means this is taking place now. So fast is a short word, and you generally add ER to 1 syllable or short words. Now let's take expensive, which is 3 syllables. You generally use more plus adjective. So I could say the hotel, because instead of prices, which is general, I would use something specific, such as the hotel is more expensive than I expected. So this than I expected or than anyone, this is general. It includes all people, and you have your expectation and then you have reality, and this is used to show they're different. Notice here I used expected or predicted. They're similar but not exactly the same. The noun form is an expectation. This is the adjective form, expected. So as the word, it means based on feeling or belief. So I expected I would do better. So it's based on more of my feeling or my belief, maybe based on past experience. A prediction, so here predicted is the ED form, the noun is a prediction. This is more based on data or analysis. So I could say, I studied all the hotel prices in the area, and this is more expensive than I predicted. So I looked at the data or analysis. Coming back to our comparative phrase, maybe you're thinking right now, learning English with the news, what you're doing right now is helping me improve my English faster than I expected. You could also use than I predicted if you want to make it sound like it's more based on analysis or data, but I used expected because it's more based on a feeling, belief, and your life experience. Now, you could add on, and it's more fun too. So it's more fun than I expected. I put a star here because you may realize that fun is a short word. It's a 1-syllable adjective. So this is an exception to the rule. We don't say funner, although you will hear native speakers say that. It's more fun. So this is an exception to the general guideline on versus more adjective. And do you agree with that? Learning English with the news is a fast and fun way to improve your English. If you do, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. Now let's continue with the article. While we're not short on divisive topics in 2025, there are valid reasons as to why we're turning to chatbots for emotional support. Let's stop here because there are already some phrases I want to teach you. While we're not short on divisive topics, do you know what a divisive topic is? Well, this comes from the word divide. So it's a topic that divides people. So it's controversial or it's a heated topic. People have strong beliefs about it. That would be a divisive topic. Now let's look at the expression to be short on something. In this case, the something is divisive topics, topics that divide people. Now, if you're short on something, it means you have a limited amount or not enough of something. But notice here, this is in the negative. So it's saying we're not limited in the number of topics that divide people. This expression is used in everyday speech in both a casual and professional context. So someone might call you and you say, "Can I call you later? I'm short on time." So you're letting them know you're not able to talk right now because you don't have enough time. Your time is limited. So it's very common to be short on time, money, ideas, patience, many intangible things, and then tangible things as well. While we're not short on divisive topics in 2025, there are valid reasons as to why we're turning to chatbots for emotional support. Let's talk about this to turn to someone or something. To turn to means you go to someone or something, in this case a chatbot, for help, advice, or support. For example, she turned to her team for support because she was short on time. So she didn't have enough time, she felt overwhelmed, so she relied on her team. She went to her team and said, "I need your help. I need your support. Can you help me? Can you help me complete this project?" She turned to her team. You don't have to include this for support. If you just say she turned to her team because she was short on time, it would be implied that she was going to her team for either support, help, or advice. So if you want to be specific, you can, but you don't even need to include it. So here they were specific. Notice the preposition is for something. So for support. And then what type of support? There could be financial support, but in this case, it's emotional support. So support for your emotional well-being. And why people are also very much against it. So against what? Against turning to chatbots or replacing therapists with chatbots. So notice you can be against something. You're for something, which means you support it, or you're against something, which means you oppose it. Against is a preposition, so if you had the noun form, you would need the gerund verb. Against replacing therapists with chatbots. Now, if you use opposed, which has the same meaning, and you specified the subject, you also have to use to, which is a preposition, so you would still need the ing form. People are also very much opposed to replacing therapists with chatbots. But both of these can be replaced with it because a gerund phrase is conjugated as it. So opposed to it, against it. Now remember, to be against something, you need your verb to be, which is here. The opposite is to be for something, the preposition for. So you need your verb to be because it's to be for something. Some people are for it, for replacing therapists. Now, if you use the word support, you would just say some people support it. The next part of the article is a question. So how willing are you to embrace this new form of therapy? And of course, the new form of therapy is using chatbots instead of a human therapist. And embrace, this sounds like you will accept it and you will willingly accept it. You will enthusiastically accept it. So that would be embrace. Now, in a reply to this how willing, in the highest, you can say, I'm highly willing or very willing. You could also use extremely. Now, you could end it at willing, or you could add on to try this. If you're more in the middle, more neutral, you can say, I'm somewhat willing to try this. Now, if you're at the lowest end, you're opposed to it, to make it negative, you would say, I'm not at all willing to try this. This sounds the most negative. If you just said, I'm not willing to try this, this sounds less negative than not at all. So adding those two words intensifies your unwillingness. You could also say, I'm unwilling. You can make willing negative and say, I'm unwilling to try this. Let's continue. With the technology developing and evolving faster than the academic community can study and publish evidence-based studies on it, there's nonetheless a growing body of expert commentary surrounding AI large language models. LLM is the common abbreviation, and their ability or lack thereof. So they're talking about the technology of chatbots. Now here, notice that comparative again, faster than something else. Now you could say quicker. Rapid is a common adjective as well. And even though this is a short 2-syllable adjective, it uses more. So I put an asterisk here because you can also think of it as an exception to the guideline of short adjectives use er. But this one is more rapid than the academic community can study and publish evidence-based studies on it, the it being the technology, the development of the technology. Now there's nonetheless. Nonetheless is there because it introduces a contrast or exception. So it lets you know that the next point is going to be a contrast to what was just said. You're familiar with other connectors, I'm sure, like although, however, but is a more casual one. Nonetheless is a more academic or formal connector. You can say, I'm short on time. I can help you nonetheless. Or you could say, I'm short on time, but I can help you. That's a more casual, everyday way of saying it. Although I'm short on time, I can help you. This sounds a little more formal than but it still sounds casual and conversational. Nonetheless, does sound quite formal. There's nonetheless a growing body of expert commentary surrounding AI large language models. So the commentary represents things that people are saying. So it could be they're going on podcasts or the news and verbally saying that large language models can be beneficial for therapy. They're writing it in academic journals and articles. So commentary can be both verbal or written. Let's look at this part and their ability. So the ability of chatbots or lack thereof. Ooh, do you know what this means? This is a great expression to know. It's commonly used in more formal sounding speech, but it is used in everyday conversations as well. Or lack thereof means the thereof represents the lack of whatever was just mentioned. So in this case, what was just mentioned was the ability of LLMs, large language models. So it's saying their ability or lack of ability. And then you can just replace that with lack thereof. Here's an example of how we would use this expression in everyday speech. In a meeting, someone might say, we need to discuss the project timeline or lack thereof. So they state it as a positive, discuss the project timeline, but then they add on or lack thereof to say, because we don't have a project timeline. We need to discuss the fact that there isn't a project timeline. So it's often added after to say that there's an absence or lack of this. Now let's review this part. Their ability, so the chatbot's ability, or lack of ability, lack thereof, in replacing real human trained psychologists. Much like the broad reasons people use chatbots, so broad means there are many different reasons that people use chatbots. Instead of broad, you could say diverse to mean there are many different reasons, or you could say wide-ranging. Much like the broad reasons people use chatbots, employing them as a digital therapist is also multifaceted. Multifaceted in this context is more of a replacement to broad in the sense that there are many different reasons, but it can also mean many different features or components. So if you describe a chatbot as multifaceted, it sounds like it can do many different things. There are many different features, many different components. So it's another way of saying complex. Now notice here, they're using the verb to employ in the ing form, employing them, so chatbots. In this case, employ means use, but it's not interchangeable for the verb use. I wouldn't say I employ my toothbrush every morning. I would just say I use my toothbrush. So employ means to use something for a specific purpose. So again, I wouldn't say I'm employing my pen, but I might say I employed my pen to build a tent. First thing I thought of. So I used it for a specific purpose in a very strategic way. So that's when you would replace the simple verb use with employ, to use for a specific purpose, often in a strategic way. Let's continue. In-person therapy is prohibitive. Prohibitive. So this comes from the verb to prohibit. As an adjective, it means that it prevents people, and it's usually because of cost. It could be because of the effort involved. It could also be because of the location. So learning English with a native English speaker may be prohibitive in your country or your town because you don't have access to one. So it could be because of location. Now, in-person therapy is prohibitive. Now they're telling you the reason why. Often to the segments of society that need it most. So the segments of society, this is just another way of saying there are certain groups or categories of people within society. A session costs between $100 and $300 US. So notice you say 100 and then after you verbalize the money sign as dollars. And the dollars has an S on it if it's more than one. Not 100, just $1, $2. So everything after $2 has that S on it when you verbalize the money sign. And this is why it's prohibitive. So you can say in-person therapy is prohibitive because of the high cost. Because of the high cost. So that's the reason why. And there's an and here. So we know they're providing an additional reason as to why it's prohibitive. And wait times. So the wait times refers to the time you have to wait for an appointment. Wait times to even see someone, so for an appointment, and hope they're a good fit can be months. Something that's worsened following the pandemic. Okay, something, so this can be that is or that has. But I know it's that has worsened following the pandemic because this is an action that started in the past and it has an impact on the present. So it's the present perfect. Instead of saying that has worsened, you could also say that has become worse. Both of them are interchangeable. Now here, notice this is your verb to be. They are a good fit. Now they're talking about to see someone. So to have an appointment with a therapist. So this is the someone, and the they represents the therapist. They are a good fit. If someone is a good fit, it means they are ideal for what you want or need. So for a therapist to be a good fit for me, they need to have the style of therapy that I prefer, the skills and experience that I require. They need to have the personality that I get along with, that I prefer. So it depends on many different things, but this is commonly used in a job interview. So you're reviewing resumes and you say, this person isn't a good fit. Maybe they don't have the education. Maybe they don't have the experience. Now, maybe the resume, they look like a good fit. You have the interview and then personality style isn't right. So you can say, they're not a good fit. Now the structure is to be, so that's your verb to be. Don't forget this article. And then you don't have to use good. You can use any adjective. She's a great fit, a perfect fit. She's an ideal fit. She's a terrible fit. She's a horrible fit for the management job. So for, and then a position, a role, or a situation. Let's continue. Online counseling with a human on the other end of the phone or laptop is somewhat more accessible. So remember we use this somewhat with willing. I'm somewhat willing. And remember I told you that makes it sound like more in the middle, more neutral. We had I'm extremely willing, I'm not at all willing, and I'm somewhat willing. So you can use this as a modifier for a choice like accessible. So it's extremely accessible. It's not at all accessible. It's somewhat accessible. So it's in the middle. Now notice here they just ended the clause, somewhat more accessible. Now you could continue on and use than if you wanted to provide the other side of the comparative. Online counseling is somewhat more accessible than in-person counseling. So this is the other part of the comparative. Now, if you didn't have this somewhat and you just said online counseling is more accessible, it sounds like it's a statement of fact. But if you say somewhat more accessible, it's reducing it. Let's continue. But a monthly subscription, so a monthly subscription to access online counseling with a human therapist can be in excess of $400. Remember, we verbalize this with an S. So in excess of means more than, can be more than $400. And that's why they use this modifier somewhat to make it sound less accessible, because remember that word we learned before, prohibitive, paying $400 per month for counseling would be prohibitive to many segments, groups, categories of society, of the population. For many, however, a chatbot offers an outlet for raw, honest discussion. Let's review outlet. An outlet, this represents an opportunity, and it's an opportunity to express thoughts, feelings, emotions. Now, we commonly use this if you're talking to a friend and you're telling them about how difficult things have been at work or at home, and you're just sharing your feelings in a very raw, which means unfiltered or honest, a raw, honest way, you can thank that friend or that colleague, that family member, and say, thanks for being my outlet. So my outlet, you're saying you are my opportunity to just express how I truly feel without thinking about what I'm saying. So that's my outlet. A lot of people use journaling, so writing down their thoughts, feelings, emotions, on a piece of paper or a Word document. So you can say journaling, the activity, is a great outlet, So this article is suggesting that the chatbot can be that outlet, that opportunity to express your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, which for now may be more beneficial than nothing. So again, here's a comparative. So beneficial is our adjective. More beneficial, because beneficial is a longer word. It's 3 or more syllables. So we use more beneficial than nothing, than doing nothing, or than saying nothing. So if you had the choice between keeping all your thoughts and feelings inside or talking to a chatbot may be more beneficial than nothing. If you include a verb, which is not required, but if you include it, it would be in the ing form, because then is a preposition. Chatbots, so notice here we have quotations, which means someone is saying this. Chatbots can provide a sense of anonymity. So this comes from the word anonymous, which means your name is, nobody knows your name. So if you publish a book and you don't provide your name, that would be anonymous. Or if you report some sort of wrongdoing at work, but you write a note and you don't sign the note, that's anonymous. So anonymity is a sense of nobody knows that you are the one sharing this information. And then confidentiality refers to the fact that that information will not be known outside of the conversation with the chatbot. Chatbots can provide a sense of anonymity and confidentiality, which can foster trust among individuals who may be hesitant to seek in-person help for their mental health concerns. Do you know what this verb means? So this is a verb, foster, to foster. Can is a modal. So after modal verbs, we use the base verb. So that's why you have this in the base verb, foster. There are many common synonyms. Foster is a more academic or formal sounding word. Some common synonyms are encourage trust, promote, build, develop, or support trust among individuals. Now, if they're hesitant, it means that, I don't really want to do this. I'm hesitant to do something. So you might be hesitant to speak in English, even though you know you should. And in this case, they may be hesitant to seek in-person help for their mental health concerns because it's uncomfortable to share your thoughts, feelings, and emotions in a very raw and honest way. And remember, this was a quotation. So here they're saying who said this. Noted researchers in this 2023 paper. Noted is a more formal way of simply saying said or claimed or even suggested would be other ways of saying that. Now the quotations begin again, and here is another transition word, furthermore. So I know they're going to provide an additional point or an additional reason. So if you're providing a list of reasons or a list of point, you can use furthermore instead of additionally. So furthermore sounds a little more formal, academic. Moreover is another choice that sounds more formal, academic. Casual ones are also in addition. Additionally is another great choice. So these three are the more everyday casual ones. Furthermore, moreover, are the formal ones. Furthermore, these chatbots can help reduce the stigma surrounding mental health. The stigma, this refers to disapproval or judgment by society. So it could be society as a whole, it could be your group of friends, your family, your coworkers, whatever social group it is. So it's a feeling of being judged or a feeling of shame, embarrassment because of something. Now the preposition, you can use surrounding mental health. You can also use the preposition around. So the stigma surrounding losing your job, or the stigma around losing your job, and make it easier for individuals who experience anxiety when visiting therapists. Of course, you can use and to connect two ideas. So the chatbots can do two things. It can reduce the stigma and make it easier. Now, we already use furthermore in this sentence, so you wouldn't use furthermore again here, but I want to show you, you could have two things and say chatbots can reduce the stigma, period. Furthermore, it can make it. So you could end this as a period and then start the next sentence with furthermore, but you would have to include the subject again because you need the full clause. So subject, verb, object. Furthermore, it can make it, and then the rest is the same, easier for individuals. So that's just an option where you can have two ideas. You can connect them with and, or if you want to sound more formal or academic, you can end a sentence and then start the next sentence with a transition word. Furthermore, also, in addition, additionally. And that's the end of the article. So what I'll do now is I'll read the article from start to finish, and this time you can focus on my pronunciation. Chatbots are replacing therapists faster than anyone expected. While we're not short on divisive topics in 2025, there are valid reasons as to why we're turning to chatbots for emotional support and why people are also very much against it. So how willing are you to embrace this new form of therapy? With the technology developing and evolving faster than the academic community can study and publish evidence-based studies on it, there's nonetheless a growing body of expert commentary surrounding AI large language models, LLM, and their ability, or lack thereof, in replacing real human-trained psychologists. Much like the broad reasons people use chatbots, employing them as a digital therapist is also multifaceted. In-person therapy is prohibitive, often to the segments of society that need it most. A session costs between $100 and $300 US, and wait times to even see someone and hope they're a good fit can be months, something that's worsened following the pandemic. Online counseling with a human on the other end of the phone or laptop is somewhat more accessible, but a monthly subscription can be in excess of $400. For many, however, a chatbot offers an outlet for raw, honest discussion and reflection, which, for now, may be more beneficial than nothing. Chatbots can provide a sense of anonymity and confidentiality, which can foster trust among individuals who may be hesitant to seek in-person help for their mental health concerns, noted researchers in this 2023 paper. Furthermore, these chatbots can help reduce the stigma surrounding mental health and make it easier for individuals who experience anxiety when visiting therapists.
Amazing job. Now let's keep going and read another article together.
Our headline, kids are asking AI companions to solve their problems. Here's why that's a problem. So here, notice we have that's, which of course is the contraction of that is. But what does that represent? Here's why kids asking AI companions to solve their problems. So all of this functions as that, which is why it's so important to replace it with a relative pronoun when you can. Here's why that's a problem. And notice here, if you wrote it out, you would just use the gerund, kids asking, because we don't want the verb conjugated. So here we have subject form where it is the subject, and then we have our verb conjugated with the subject. It's in the present continuous because it's taking place now. In this case, we just want kids doing something. So you want the gerund verb if you were to specify what that represents. Now, although you certainly would not replace that with all of these words, it's important to understand the grammar of it if you ever needed to specify it. Now let's learn about this issue. When two of James Johnson Burns' friends, so this is the name of the person, his last name is hyphenated because it's likely the last name of his mother and the last name of his father. That is sometimes done. That's why you'll see this last name hyphenated. And we have this possessive here because the friends belong to James, but they're just including his last name, which is why the possessive goes on the last name. When two of James Johnson Burns' friends got into an argument. So notice here the sentence structure. You get into an argument. Now, when you get into an argument, it means you start arguing with someone. So this is commonly done among friends, among spouses, among family members. You can say, oh, sorry, I'm in a bad mood. My husband and I got into a silly argument this morning over who forgot to take the garbage out or something. You might specify silly argument to mean it wasn't anything serious. So to get into an argument, my husband and I started arguing about something silly. So your preposition is into an argument, and then your verb is get, which you conjugate. So this is in the past simple. Now, in this case, they didn't specify the topic of the argument, which is completely fine. It's not required information. If you do, you would use the preposition about. So this is the topic of the argument. Who forgot to take out the garbage? You did. No, you did. I asked you. No, I asked you. So that's why I mentioned silly to mean it's not serious. So the friends got into an argument earlier this year. He didn't know what to do. So this kid, James, didn't know what to do, didn't know how to handle the situation, how to resolve the argument, because you can resolve an argument. You don't solve an argument because it suggests there's one correct solution. You can resolve it, which means you complete it with a positive outcome. So you can resolve an argument or you can handle the situation, which means you do something to make it more positive. There is no requirement to change the words listed here. This is perfectly fine. But one measure of your fluency is how easily you can replace words with something else and keep the same meaning, but say it in a different way. He didn't know what to do. So the 16-year-old turned to an AI companion for advice. Okay, so the 16-year-old is James. So you would say James is 16 years old. And in that case, years would have an S on it. That's how you say your age. 16 years old. But in this case, the 16-year-old, this functions as an adjective. So you don't add an S to year because adjectives don't have a plural form. Now, in this case, it's interesting because there is no noun. Generally, adjectives modify nouns. So we have the is a marker for a noun. Articles are not used with adjectives. Articles are used with nouns. So the 16-year-old, this is an adjective. What is this? A verb. So where's the noun? It's not there. because it's obvious, it's implied. We don't need to say it because we understand it based on the context already given. So the 16-year-old boy would be the noun. The 16-year-old student would be the noun. 16-year-old kid would be the noun, but the noun is not there. So just keep that in mind if you're wondering, okay, we have an article, we have an adjective, we have a verb, where's the noun? The noun is not there, it's just implied. So the 16-year-old turned to an AI companion. So notice here, our phrasal verb is turn to. You turn to someone or something. So I could say, I turn to my mother for advice. This for represents to receive advice. So if you were to use a verb, you would say to receive. You would use the infinitive, to receive advice. But because we have a noun, you would use for, the preposition for plus noun. Advice is a noun. Advice. So when you turn to someone, my mother, or something, an AI companion, it means you use that person to solve a problem or help you handle a situation. So you go to that person for a specific purpose. If you have a problem, an issue, and you need help. Hopefully you would say, I always turn to Jennifer for advice. What type of advice? Relationship advice? Diet advice? No, for fluency advice, So always is our adverb of frequency. So that's why we have turn as the present simple. You could say, she always turns to Jennifer for fluency advice. So you would add that S, of course. So we'll keep it as I, because I want you to imagine this and put that's right, put that's right in the comments if you turn to me or my channel, because you can use a something. So you can say to Jennifer, or you could say to Jennifer's channel, because that's a something for fluency advice. So again, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. AI companions are digital characters who text and talk with users. The chatbot told Johnson Byrne. So here they're using the chatbot as an AI companion. They're using those two terms interchangeably. So when they say the chatbot, they also mean the AI companion. The chatbot told Johnson Byrne, remember this is our 16-year-old, told Johnson Byrne, who lives in Philadelphia. This information just tells you more about who this person is, and it's between commas, which means you can take it out grammatically and it doesn't impact the sentence. So you can read it without this information and it must be grammatically correct. The chatbot told Johnson Byrne to separate his friends. So you tell someone to do something. Sometimes I hear students change the word order of that. Even though tell is such a basic verb that you would learn in beginner English, I still hear mistakes. So you tell someone to do something. So the to do represents that you need the infinitive here, which we have, and the something is all of this, to separate his friends. That's the something, but to do represents the infinitive. He did so. So what does this mean? He did so. He separated his friends. So you might hear someone say, or I'll just say, I told you to subscribe to my channel, and hopefully you did so. So I'm adding hopefully because I don't know. If I say, and you did so, it means you subscribed to my channel, but I actually don't know that to be factual. Because of that, I have to put a word to let the audience know I'm not stating this as fact. Otherwise, it's misleading. And hopefully you did so. Hopefully you subscribed to my channel. So said from your perspective, Jennifer told me to subscribe to her channel, and I did so. So you're stating it as a fact. So hopefully you did so. Now you have a lot of examples of how to use this. So did represents, well, did so, these two words represents the action. Now just know you can absolutely only use did. Jennifer told me to subscribe to her channel and I did. And I did so. And I did so, just think of it as a phrase. It's more emphatic. It emphasizes the action a little more, but is perfectly acceptable to just say, and I did. So if you don't feel comfortable using did so, because it's not always correct, it's correct in certain circumstances, you can simply say did. He did, even in this case, he did, because did always refers back to the last action mentioned. He did so, and it solved the immediate problem, he said. But now they don't talk much. So they, meaning his friends who were arguing, who got into an argument, to use that expression. But now they don't talk much. The experience showed him that AI companions can't find the deeper issue. He said, I'd be scared to ask them, so them represents the AI companions, or in this case, AI chatbots, the chatbots. I'd be scared to ask them a deep underlying question. Now, what does this apostrophe D represent? It could represent I had or I would, but only one is grammatically correct. I would is the only possible choice, although I'd also is a contraction for I had when it fits grammatically. I'd be scared because you use modal and then your base verb. I'd be scared because it's hypothetical. He hasn't done this yet. He hasn't asked them. So in this hypothetical situation, he would be scared if he asked them a deep underlying question. Let's look at these two adjectives. We have deep and then we have underlying. So here, deep, they used deeper, which is the comparative form. So a deep question, deep means more serious, more important, or more profound. And it goes below the surface. So going back to my example where my husband and I got into a silly argument, okay, about who forgot to take out the garbage. Now that's the surface level issue. He didn't take out the garbage. I'm mad at him. But maybe there's a deeper issue. He never does what I ask him. He doesn't listen to me. This has been going on for years and years. Just an example. But that would be the deeper issue. Okay. So there's the surface level issue. I'm mad at him because he didn't take out the garbage. And then there's the deeper issue. What is causing this tension or this conflict between us? So that's how deep is being used. Underlying, this one, it's more of a hidden concern. So you can think of it as what I said. I don't see them being too distinct. Deep just means more serious or more important. And then underlying means it's more the hidden one. It's not the obvious one. So again, the obvious one is he didn't take out the garbage. The hidden one is the fact that for years, I feel like he doesn't listen to me and I can't rely on him. So that's the underlying issue. In this case, they used question because he's talking about asking the AI companions a question. Let's keep going. Another thing that struck Johnson Byrne was how AI companions seemed to always agree with him. Okay, let's look at this. What form of the verb is this? Past simple. What's the base verb? Strike. So to strike someone, when something strikes someone, it means that information surprises that person or it gets their attention. It causes them to stop and think about something. So another thing that struck him. So another thing that got him to pay more attention or think about it or wasn't what he previously thought. Another thing that struck Johnson Byrne was how AI companions seem to always agree with him. So we have here to seem to do something. Okay, so our verb is seem. In this case, is conjugated in the past simple. And then we have our infinitive, to agree with him. Now, if something seems to be, it means that it appears that way. You think it is that way, but you're not presenting it as fact. So there's some level of doubt there. So if I say, my students seem to enjoy my news lessons, I'm saying there's some proof in that. I get positive comments from students, but I'm not presenting it as a universal truth or as a fact. So how AI companions seemed to always agree with him and tell him what he wanted to hear. And he found the way they talk to be eerily similar to humans. So the way the AI companions, the chatbots talk to be eerily. So there are three sounds: eerily, 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 eerily. And this is the adverb form because it modifies the verb. The adjective form is eerie, eerie. Ooh, that's eerie. So eerie means weird, spooky, creepy, unusual. So let's say I'm thinking about my friend. Okay, I'm thinking about my childhood friend I haven't seen in a really long time. And then I get ding, a notification. And I look at my phone and it's a text message from that friend that I have not talked to in years. And I was just thinking about her. And I don't normally think about this friend. I would say, whoa, that's eerie. That's spooky, creepy, weird. So that's eerily similar to humans, but in a creepy, spooky way because it's not a human, it's an AI. Let's keep reading. At one point when he was talking to an AI companion, I forgot it was actually not my friend, he said. So this shifts to first person voice because they put it in quotation. So he said these words, I forgot it wasn't actually my friend. But the rest of it is in reported speech. So this just makes more of an impact because these are the actual words he said. New research suggests other teens are having the same experience. So the same experience with what he just presented, how the AI chatbot solved his problem, didn't get to the underlying issue, seems to try to tell him what he wants to hear, things like that. So that's the same experience. Teens, this is the short form for what word? Teenagers. So teenagers, well, which we have right here, teenagers. So that's the short form is teens. Most people just use teens in spoken English, but you can absolutely use teenager as well. And that represents children between the ages of 13 to 19. Those are the only years that include the word teen: 13, 14, 19, 20. So 20, you're not a teenager because it doesn't end in teen. So new research suggests, this has the S on it because the subject is research, which is singular. New research suggests other teenagers are having the same experience. So in this case, the verb is to have an experience. Now, you can put the verb have in the progressive form, the present continuous, because it's not as possessing. So when you experience something, you can put it in the ing form. You can absolutely say have an experience. I had the weirdest experience today. It was really eerie. And then I can talk about how I was thinking about this childhood friend and then she texted me. So you can have an experience, but you can also just experience. So this would be the verb. In this case, it's being used as the noun because the verb is have. But you could also say new research suggests other teens are experiencing the same. So you could absolutely say that as well. And remember, I said it's always useful to know different ways of saying the same thing. That's a great marker of how fluent you truly are or how well you truly understand the English language when you can make these changes that I'm making. Let's keep reading. The majority of teenagers. So notice here we have the majority of, and then your noun in the plural. The majority of teenagers. And then they specify what that means because majority just means 51% or more. So there's a big difference between 52% and 92%. So here they're telling you what this means. You could equally just say 72% of teenagers. So if you use a percentage, you still need of, but you could say that 72% of teenagers have used AI companions. So this is in the plural form because the subject is they, is plural. They have used AI companions. According to the survey of over 1,000 13 to 17-year-olds. So here the S is on olds because this functions as a noun. Because if it were an adjective, you wouldn't have an S on it. So 13 to 17-year-olds conducted this year. Now, this isn't all teenagers because you would have to include 18 and 19 to represent all teenagers. Over half of teens, so here they're using the short form again, over half of teens, so more than 50% of teens use them, the chatbots, regularly, according to the research. And 1/3 turn to them for relationships and social interactions. So here we have this phrasal verb. What does it mean? When you turn to someone or something, it means you go to that person or that thing, because AI chatbots are not people, they're things, for support, help, advice for a specific purpose. Let's keep reading. What's more? So what's more, this is a transition phrase to introduce the sentence. So a more common way that you may know is moreover or additionally. What's more sounds a little more casual, to be honest. I don't hear it a lot in more academic sounding environments. Moreover is a formal sounding transition word when you want to add an additional point. So here they've added this information and they want to add more information. To add more, you can say moreover, or casually, you can say what's more. If you use moreover, just know it's spelled as one word. And then you have a comma here, and then this is the beginning of your sentence. So this doesn't affect the grammar of your sentence. You can remove it. This is the beginning of your sentence. So you need a subject, a verb, and an object. The subject is teens. More specifically, 31% of teens. Remember, if you use the percentage, you need of still, and then the plural. 31% of teens say their conversations with AI companions are as satisfying as or more satisfying than their conversations with other people. Okay, here. So as satisfying as. You need, this is your adjective, and then you need as before and after. And it means the same level. So you can say, this movie was as good as this movie. So we have better than, worse than, as good as, okay? As good as, as good as. And you can change good for whatever adjective you want, as long as their length was the same, 2 hours, 2 hours. As entertaining as terrible as. So it can be a negative thing. So you can use whatever adjective you want, in this case, satisfying, but don't forget that double as satisfying as adjective as. Now, when you use as adjective as, you go directly to the next point. So movie A was as good as movie B. So if you want to use more, so you could say better than or worse than, you have to use than. But the word than is not used with as adjective as, okay? So as satisfying as or more satisfying than their conversations with other people. And 33% have discussed. So here, notice again, they're using the short form because it's 33%. We don't know the noun, but yes, we do because they already said of teens. In English, native speakers, we don't repeat information if we don't have to. And in this case, there's no reason to say 33% of teens because it's known, it's obvious. 33% of teens, 33% have discussed, that's why it's plural, have discussed serious and important issues with AI companions instead of other humans. The findings shed new light on the relationships teens are developing with AI tools. So here, this is a useful phrase, to shed light on. You don't need new light. You can shed light on. Shed light on something. So something, the findings, the verb is shed. Shed light on something else. This is a great phrase to have, especially in a business or more professional situation, often used when you're talking about studies or findings, research, but can absolutely be in an everyday situation. So to shed light on something, it means to help explain or clarify something. Ultimately, it makes it easier to understand. So the findings make it easier to understand the relationship teens are developing with AI. Now, shed is an irregular verb. All three conjugations are shed. Shed, shed, shed. Now, if it were a singular here, you would have to add the S, of course, in the present simple. She sheds light on. She, because my example below is with a she. That's kind of difficult to say. She sheds light on. It's a little bit of a tongue twister there. So here's an example. Remember, my husband and I got into an argument over who took out the garbage or who forgot to take out the garbage in my hypothetical example, although we've probably argued about silly things like that. So here, the therapist shed light on, so this is the past simple, shed light on why we've been bickering about trivial things. Bickering is you did, meh, 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 when you fight about things that are not important. Trivial also represents things that are not important. If you're not familiar with that adjective, trivial means it's not important. About trivial things. And then here's an example, like taking out the garbage. This is something trivial. It's not really important in the grand scheme of things. Now, she shed light on, so this is the past simple as well. She shed light on the deeper issue. Remember the deeper underlying issue. So I'll add that as well. Underlying issue being our lack of communication or whatever I made up as our underlying issue. All right, so now you can use this one as well. And that's the end of the article. So what I'll do now is I'll read the article from start to finish and you can focus on my pronunciation. Kids are asking AI companions to solve their problems. Here's why that's a problem. When two of James Johnson Burns' friends got into an argument earlier this year, he didn't know what to do, so the 16-year-old turned to an AI companion for advice. AI companions are digital characters who text and talk with users. The chatbot told Johnson Byrne, who lives in Philadelphia, to separate his friends. He did so, and it solved the immediate problem, he said, but now they don't talk much. The experience showed him that AI companions can't find the deeper issue, he said. I'd be scared to ask them a deep underlying question. Another thing that struck Johnson Byrne was how AI companions seemed to always agree with him and tell him what he wanted to hear. And he found the way they talk to be eerily similar to humans. At one point, when he was talking to an AI companion, I forgot it was actually not my friend, he said. New research suggests other teens are having the same experience. The majority of teenagers, 72%, have used AI companions, according to the survey of over 1,000 13 to 17-year-olds conducted this year. Over half of teens use them regularly, according to the research, and 1/3 turn to them for relationships and social interactions. What's more, 31% of teens say their conversations with AI companions are as satisfying as or more satisfying than their conversations with other people. And 33% have discussed serious and important issues with AI companions instead of other humans. The findings shed new light on the relationships teens are developing with AI tools.
Amazing job. Now let's keep going and read another article together.
Our headline, The Godfather of AI reveals the only way humanity can survive AI. Notice here we have this name in a quote is to show it's a nickname, not an official title. When someone is referred to as the godfather for a male, it could be godmother for a female of something, and it could be anything. It could be of soul music, of French cuisine, of teaching English. It means they are a pioneer in that field or area. So they're one of the earliest people on that subject to be influential. They're known as the leader. That would be the godfather or godmother of something. The first godfather I thought of was Stan Lee. Stan Lee is the godfather of superheroes. He created Batman, Spider-Man, and Iron Man, many others. Now notice I added considered in parentheses. If you say Stan Lee is considered, it sounds like some people think it, some people don't. But if you just use the verb to be, then it sounds more like a statement of fact. And here, notice they used the because there's only one godfather of AI. So they're making it sound unique, the godfather. So it sounds more impactful. You could also say Stan Lee is a godfather of superheroes to mean that there are other influential pioneers in that specific area. You could do that, but the makes it sound more impactful. Now let's keep reading. Geoffrey Hinton, known as the godfather of AI. So notice this known as. This means many people say it, but it's not an official title. If you go to medical school and you're a doctor, that's more of an official title. This is more of a nickname. And maybe not everyone agrees. Some people may feel that another person deserves the title. So that's why they also have known as here. Known as the godfather of AI. Remember this of and then whatever the industry or field is. So Geoffrey Hinton, this is additional information. This verb here, fears, is conjugated with the subject. So when you have this additional information between commas, it doesn't impact grammar. So we can just simply go from Geoffrey Hinton fears the technology he helped build could wipe out humanity. Could is our modal. And this is an important word choice because could is simply a possibility. It's not the same as saying will. Will sounds a lot stronger. Could is a possibility. And with a modal, your next verb is the base verb. So it's an irregular structure, modal plus base verb. Now, our next verb is a phrasal verb, to wipe out. You may understand what this means just from the context, but to wipe out humanity, bad news. It means completely destroy. Everyone is gone. So if you say the flood wiped out the neighborhood is completely gone. The forest wiped out the fire wiped out the forest is completely gone. Let's continue. And the tech industry is taking the wrong approach to stop it. So it being AI. So to stop AI or to stop the destructive possibility of AI. Hinton, a Nobel Prize winning computer scientist and a former Google executive. So the same thing as above here, they provided his name and then additional information. This is very commonly done, so you can add additional information about someone or something naturally without forming another sentence. And remember, whatever comes next will be conjugated with the subject Hinton, which is of course third person singular, he has warned. So that's why we have has, because it's Hinton has warned in the past that there is a 10% to 20% chance that AI wipes out humanity. So the same phrasal verb we learned before, in this case, it's conjugated in the present simple and it's being conjugated with the subject AI. AI wipes out humanity. Let's review these percentages here because they're not required. You could say that there is a chance that AI wipes out humanity, but that's unclear because how much of a chance? 10%, 80%? There's a big difference between those two numbers. So providing the number is a great strategy, especially if you want to be more precise in how you communicate. Providing a specific number, and notice you would vocalize this as percent, 10% chance. You could, instead of that, you could provide a word. So a 10 to 20% chance, that would be a low chance. Now, 40 to 60, you could consider that a moderate chance. And then 70 to 90, you could consider that a high chance. There's a chance of rain today. So if you don't have anything, you still need this article, a chance, because chance is a noun. And then you would still include the article here, a low chance of rain today, a 10% chance of rain today. Or in this case, unfortunately, that AI wipes out humans. And here, notice they just replaced the word humanity with humans. On Tuesday, he expressed doubts. What do you notice about the pronunciation here? Doubts. This B is silent, which means you can pretend it is not there for spelling. Doubt. But then when you add this S, this T won't be as strong. Doubts. He expressed doubts about how tech companies are trying to ensure humans remain dominant over submissive AI systems. The fact that the word dominant and submissive is in quotes sounds like he specifically used this word. So the article is letting you know that this word comes directly from his mouth. He uses this terminology when referring to AI. And dominant means in control. So you could also say He expressed doubts about how tech companies are trying to ensure humans remain in control or in power over AI. Now, remain, this means humans are now dominant, now in control. So you have to keep it. So that's the word remain. Now, submissive in this context, referring to a submissive AI system, is one that only follows instructions, not act independently. That would be a submissive AI system. Let's continue. Notice here we have a quotation mark. So these words are coming from his mouth, him being the godfather of AI. That's not going to work. They're going to be much smarter than us. So this represents the AI systems. The AI systems are going to be much smarter than us being, of course, humans. They're going to have all sorts of ways to get around that. So that being humans being dominant, that's not going to work. How humans are dominant now, whatever is in place now. I actually do not know what is in place now, so I can only speak of it in a general context, but that's what they're talking about in this context. So to get around that, let's talk about what this means here. They're going to have, so remember, they represent the AI systems. So AI systems, if you just say AI, it would be conjugated as singular. AI is going to. But AI systems, then it would be they're going to have all sorts of ways. Instead of sorts, you could also say kinds of ways. So it means there are many different ways. It's a more casual way of saying they're going to have many different ways. But here you have to use of as well. So all sorts of or all kinds of, that would be the expression. And this means many different ways. So many different ways. Many different ways to do something. So you have the infinitive here. To get around something. If you get around something, it means you avoid it. You can use this more physically if you're driving and then you see a body of water in front of you that you didn't expect. You might say, how are we going to get around this lake? So how are we going to avoid it and get to where we want to? And in this context, get around means avoid whatever is in place now to remain in control, for the humans to remain in control, dominant. They're going to be able to avoid it. So if this is the code or the measure, they can get around it. They can avoid that, which means that humans will not remain dominant. That's his concern. And Hinton said this. Hinton said at AI4, an industry conference in Las Vegas. Las. The pronunciation and spelling are different. Las Vegas. Let's continue. This year has already seen examples of AI systems willing to deceive, cheat, and steal to achieve their goals. So in this case, deceive would be another way of saying to lie. So when you say something that isn't the truth in order to get a specific outcome, so to deceive. For example, this is a very powerful transition word. So when you have a statement, you can make that sound more advanced or even simply expand on your answer by giving an example. For example is the standard way of saying it. Alternatively, you could say as an example. However, for example is the most common choice. For example, to avoid being replaced. Now, here, this looks like the infinitive, but it's not, because in English, sentences don't begin with the infinitive. This is a purpose clause, and it means in order to avoid being replaced. So it's how that action happens. But native speakers rarely say in order to avoid being replaced. It's maybe 10% of the time you would include in order. So the majority of the time you're going to see what looks like the infinitive. The one way you'll know is because this part has to relate to this part. To avoid being replaced, how did this happen? So now they'll provide the explanation. One AI model tried to blackmail an engineer about an affair it learned about in an email. So this is the example. This is how the model tried to avoid being replaced. And notice here we have the word avoid, and then your next verb is in ing. That's because the word avoid is a gerund verb. So you need avoid, and then you have the gerund verb. So whatever your next verb is, it's going to be in the gerund. Do you know what the word blackmail means? In this context, it's a verb, but it can also be used as a noun. The meaning is the same, it's just a different part of speech. So blackmail, the definition is to threaten to reveal, so to share, embarrassing, damaging, or secret information about someone. That someone could also be a company, unless they give you what you want. So in this case, the AI model tried to blackmail an engineer about an affair it learned about in an email. So it being the AI model. So the AI model has access to this engineer's email account. And in that email account, maybe there was a photo of the engineer and another woman, but the engineer is married. So this AI model would somehow communicate to the engineer that if you replace me, because remember, to avoid being replaced, if you replace me, I will send this photo to your wife. That's blackmail. Now, it can be for money, but it's not always for money. So often, if you're blackmailed, the person wants money in exchange. But in this case, the AI wants to remain in the computer system. So it can be common to blackmail someone for a promotion, for a job at a company, for a certain title. That is also common as well. You'll hear it more in movies and books than you will experience it in your daily life, hopefully. However, this story is not about a movie or a book. This is something that happened to whoever this engineer is. Let's continue. Instead of forcing AI to submit to humans. So this comes from that word submissive. So if AI submits to humans, it means that they agree to follow humans, agree to follow any instructions that humans give without acting independently. So this example of this AI blackmailing the engineer, that would be perhaps an example of the AI acting independently, unless it was built into the code that the AI could do that behavior. Notice here we have instead of, and then you have your verb in ing again. In this case, it's because of is a preposition, so you always have your verb in ing. So when you're seeing grammar, it's important to understand, okay, so here we have the gerund because of the word of, avoid. But in this case, we have the gerund because of, preposition plus gerund. Instead of forcing AI to submit to humans, Hinton, the grandfather of AI, presented an intriguing solution. Intriguing, this is an adjective. It describes the solution. So he shared a solution. Now, when you add an adjective, you still need an article, but you may need to change the article because when you have a vowel, you need an intriguing solution. So as an adjective, intriguing, this is one that causes you to think, to be curious, to want to learn more. So what is this intriguing solution? Building maternal instincts into AI models. So they really care about people. So of course, maternal relates to mother. So maternal instincts, the way a mother would treat her children. And of course, mothers really care about their children. That's an understatement. And that's his intriguing solution. So this choice of an adjective makes sense because imagine someone shared this for the first time. It would cause you to go, but not just, you want to think about it more. You want to consider it more. So intriguing isn't just that something's interesting. It's that it causes you to want to think about it or learn more about it as well. So it's a great adjective to have in your vocabulary. So they really care about people, even once the technology becomes more powerful and smarter than humans. Now notice here, they say even once the technology. This is an important word choice because by saying even once something happens, it assumes that this is a fact. But if you use the word choice, even if the technology becomes, then it's not a fact. It's a possibility. But as it's written right now, this is assumed as a fact. Let's review these two sentences. We'll still talk every day, even once I move abroad. Maybe I say this to a friend who's sad because I'm moving, or a coworker, or even a family member. But when I say even once, I do something. So remember, you need the present simple. Even once I move abroad, this is a certainty. I'm moving abroad. I'm packing my bags. I already have a new apartment. But if I say we'll still talk every day, even if I move abroad, in this case, it's a possibility. So maybe I shared to my friend that, well, I was offered this job in Panama and I'm considering accepting it. And then my friend's really upset. Panama, that's so far away. I'm going to miss you. And then I can say this, even if, because right now it's still a possibility. So a big difference between these two word choices. Let's continue. Hinton said it's not clear to him. So if something isn't clear to him, it's like saying he doesn't know. Hinton said it's not clear to him. Hinton said he doesn't know exactly how that can be done technically. So technically, of course, that means how would they write the code for it? How would they program the computer? And that represents, do you know, how that can be done? Adding maternal instincts into AI models. So technically, how can we do that? It's not clear to him. But stressed, so if you stress something, you make it known that it's important. But stressed, it's critical. Researchers work on it. So how could he stress it? He might say, it's extremely critical. I need you to understand it's extremely critical. Or you could even just use critical, but of course saying extremely makes it sound stronger. So that's how he could stress it. And then this is just reporting what his actions are. But we can use this in speech as well. I may say to you, I want to stress how important it is that you practice all the information you learn in this lesson today, tomorrow, and the next day so you permanently remember it. So I can use the words. I want to stress how important it is. Let's continue. Hinton is known for his pioneering work on neural networks, which helped pave the way to today's AI boom. So to pave the way means to cause it to happen. So his work on neural networks helped make sure that the AI boom happened. So that's pave the way. And then your verb is pave, and then you would conjugate that verb pave. Here we have it in the base form because we have help, and then in American English, the next verb is the base verb. And this could be an example of why he's known as the godfather of AI, not grandfather, godfather of AI. So you're known for something. So I'm known for my English lessons on YouTube. I'm known as, and then you can have a title. I'm known as an amazing YouTube teacher. Hopefully you feel that way. So he's known as the godfather of AI. That's the title, but he's known for, and then something specific, his pioneering work on neural networks. And here, today's AI boom, the word boom represents rapid growth. So today's AI way to rapid AI growth. So you would have to change the wording here. Helped pave the way to rapid AI growth. Rapid growth, what type of growth? AI would be the adjective. Rapid AI development, rapid AI success. So you can summarize that with the word choice boom. In 2023, he stepped down from Google. So the phrasal verb is step down, and you step down from either a company or a position. Now, when you step down, you permanently leave your position and it's voluntary. So it's another way of saying quit, but we really only use step down with senior level positions. If you don't have a senior level position, you wouldn't use step down, you would simply say quit. And if you use quit, notice that the verb conjugation is irregular. It's quit in the past simple as well. In 2023, he quit Google. He stepped down from Google and started speaking out about the dangers of AI. The word choice here is important because if you say he started speaking about the dangers of AI, grammatically it's correct and it also makes sense. It's logical. He started speaking out about the dangers of AI. The meaning is different in this case. The meaning here of speak out about something is you express your opinion on something controversial. Speaking just means sharing information, any information, but speaking out is specific information. You express your opinion on something controversial. And the something controversial is the dangers of AI. Not everyone agrees. Not everyone agrees on the timelines or the severity or the solutions or the problem. So that's why it's considered controversial. Not everyone is on board with Hinton's maternal AI approach. Okay, so similar to what I just said, not everyone agrees, but in this case, it's about his maternal AI approach. So here, not everyone is on board with. So if someone shares their idea and after they say to you, are you on board? Are you on board? It means, do you agree? Do you support my idea or do you agree with what I just said? But notice here, not everyone is on board with Hinton's approach, Hinton's maternal AI approach. So the expression is to be on board with something. You could also simply say not everyone agrees with Hinton's approach, if you use the verb agree, you need the preposition with. If you use support, which has the same meaning, not everyone supports Hinton's approach, but if you use support, no preposition. So this is an idiom. You need to use all the individual words and you need to conjugate your verb to be. This is a regular verb with a preposition, and then this is a regular verb. And all of them are conjugated in the present simple, including the verb to be. And that is the end of the article. What I'll do now is I'll read the article from start to finish, and you can focus on my pronunciation. The godfather of AI reveals the only way humanity can survive AI. Geoffrey Hinton, known as the godfather of AI, fears the technology he helped build could wipe out humanity, and the tech industry is taking the wrong approach to stop it. Hinton, a Nobel Prize-winning computer scientist and a former Google executive, has warned in the past that there is a 10% to 20% chance that AI wipes out humans. On Tuesday, he expressed doubts about how tech companies are trying to ensure humans remain dominant over submissive AI systems. That's not going to work. They're going to be much smarter than us. They're going to have all sorts of ways to get around that, Hinton said at AI4, an industry conference in Las Vegas. This year has already seen examples of AI systems willing to deceive, cheat, and steal to achieve their goals. For example, to avoid being replaced, one AI model tried to blackmail an engineer about an affair it learned about in an email. Instead of forcing AI to submit to humans, Hinton presented an intriguing solution: building maternal instincts into AI models. So they really care about people, even once the technology becomes more powerful and smarter than humans. Hinton said it's not clear to him exactly how that can be done technically, but stressed it's critical researchers work on it. Hinton is known for his pioneering work on neural networks, which helped pave the way to today's AI boom. In 2023, he stepped down from Google and started speaking out about the dangers of AI. Not everyone is on board with Hinton's maternal AI approach.
Amazing job with this lesson. Do you want to keep learning English with the news? If you do, put let's go in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get your free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.